This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you!
Boring. Boring. Boring.
Okay, get into it. Don't tell us what we're gonna feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember what you're doing. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Öpik Live here on Unprecedented TV. Delighted that you could join me. I'm going to give you my personal perspective by popular demand on the budget. Why? Because I used to be an MP. I used to have to comment on these things all the time. So to be honest with you, if I had a guest today, I'd just be using them to tell you what I think anyway. We will have a slightly longer budget analysis during the weekend. But here's my brief summary of what happened this week. If for some strange reason you're not aware of it, Rachel Reeves, who is the rather accident-prone Chancellor of the Exchequer, which means that she's meant to run the economy, ran the budget debate this week. There she is, looking ridiculous with what is, in my view, the worst prime minister in living memory. She doesn't engender a lot of faith in the way that she conducts herself. But fundamentally, what she did this week is her second budget. What that means, what a budget is, can be simply explained as her game plan to make Britain's economy work. In short, she is responsible for making sure that whatever happens, it's going to be good for us, the members of the society which she is meant to serve. So my first point is this. I get the feeling that the current Labour government has completely forgotten the fact that they are there for us, not the other way around. Lots of different examples illustrate that. An obvious one is this preposterous idea that digital ID will somehow solve the migrant crisis. It won't, but it would give the government an awful lot of power over us because they can snoop on us, see what we buy, see where we are, all kinds of things like that. In the context of this economic bungle, in my opinion, Rachel Reeves has forgotten that when you make promises to the people you serve, you're meant to keep them. So my first observation is this. A year ago, she said she wasn't coming back for more borrowing or for more taxes. That's almost an exact quote. Well, she's been borrowing all year. And time again, the mainstream media said, oh, well, it's an unexpectedly large amount of borrowing. Well, eventually you get to expect it's going to be unexpectedly large. So I don't know why they say that. But the fundamental point here is she lied. She has been borrowing a lot more. But the bigger lie was about taxes. Last year, the tax burden was massively increased, despite the Labour Party and Rachel Reeves herself promising she wasn't going to increase taxes. But worst of all, she's come back and broken the promise about not coming back for more tax increases. So that's the first big thing. She betrayed the country and her voters. I wasn't one of them, but her voters by completely junking the tax promises, not just last year, but again this year. Secondly, we're in an economic mess. You will hear oftentimes people saying, oh, well, we're the second fastest growing or the third fastest growing economy. There's all kinds of charts like this one. In short, let me explain, rather than getting you to analyze these charts. Let me explain what I think is actually going on. The economy has grown. The UK economy has grown, but last year grew at a quarter, something like a quarter the rate of Russia. Why is that important? Well, Russia is suffering sanctions from the West. And despite those sanctions, the Russian economy is doing better than the UK economy. Secondly, if you actually look at the growth per head per person, it's a much worse picture. In fact, I think this could be wrong. You can put me right if you know the figures, but I think we're operating as the second worst of the G7 countries in that sense. In simple terms, the population has gone up, which means there are more people spending more money, and that in itself increases the size of our economy, but it doesn't increase the wealth per person. And as a result, we're actually doing a lot worse than the figures say. So we've got to be really careful, and Rachel Reeves hasn't really been very honest about this, because when you look at the amount per person, we're not doing that well. Then there's the third point. She's, as far as I can tell, beginning to, don't worry about reading this too much, you can freeze frame it if you want to look at it, but she's beginning to erode all kinds of incentives that were put in place by previous governments to encourage us to save for our old age and save generally. Two particular things. You used to be able to put £20,000 a year into something called an ISA, a kind of independent savings account. Now it's reduced to 12,000. That's a disincentive to save, a disincentive to look after your future. Essentially, if you squander all your money, you don't have to pay tax on it again, and the state will pick up the tab. I'll come to that in a minute. But the other problem we've got is that she's frozen the tax thresholds. You've probably heard that on the news quite. It's that the rate, the amount you have to earn before you pay income tax has stayed the same. But because of inflation, in real terms, that means that more people, because costs of things go up and salaries go up, something like 800,000 people will now be paying tax who weren't paying tax. Essentially, she has increased income tax, and she lied that she wouldn't. But worse than that with these thresholds, she herself said that freezing thresholds, the thing I'm talking about, is a bad thing to do. It's bad for workers. And now she's done it. So my issue here is she's actually contradicting herself. And then there's a fourth area as well. And the fourth area really, really annoys me. Apparently, we've got enough money to carry on sponsoring a losing war in Ukraine. Regular viewers will be quite familiar with the fact that I'm really unhappy that we are continuing to sponsor Volodymyr Zelensky, who is presiding over a broken state, a corrupt state, a state which seems to be absolutely central to putting weapons into the illegal arms trade, the arms black market all over the world. A country where repeatedly senior ministers and their family members are exposed in $100 million frauds. We've got enough money to put in there, but we haven't got enough money to look after ourselves in the United Kingdom. What that tells me is we've got a government that doesn't really understand its own priorities properly. Now, remember the point I made before. These people serve us. They don't rule us. And I feel that the decisions they're making are ignoring the will of the people. A question for you. Maybe you have a different opinion, but I don't think we should be putting lots of money into a war in Ukraine. It's a meat grinder. Warren Thornton, a regular contributor here on Unprecedented TV, reckons that for every Russian killed, 18 Ukrainians die. And that makes sense because the Russians are a professional army. Ukrainians have people my age and older on the front line after 2 weeks training. Putting all that together, where do we stand? We stand, in my view, in a country where this gormless duo are driving it into the ground. Some examples which would tend to support my theory. First of all, we have a larger exodus of millionaires than any other country in the world, as far as I understand it. Something like 15,000, 16,000 millionaires have left the country. Now, you may say, well, good riddance. But millionaires have a lot of money by definition, and many of them are entrepreneurs. And if we're losing people who know how to make money, that's a very bad look for the country. Another sign, the fact that the welfare bill looks like it's going to go up and up and up, that doesn't generate wealth. It just supports people who aren't wealthy. And since we're now punishing people for saving, or at least making it less attractive. We have a problem of credibility when it comes to her repeated claim that she is going to be the chancellor who generates growth. I don't believe that anymore. I don't think that she is, and she can be. And then the third one is this absolutely insane obsession with the environment, with trying to make us somehow support the environmental agenda, which only serves to hamstring us in terms of energy costs and everything else. I won't go into this in a lot of detail, but we have a complete balmy person in the form of Ed Miliband trying to bury carbon dioxide and telling us that carbon dioxide is our enemy. Well, if you make your energy far more expensive than anywhere else in the developed world, and that's pretty much where we are, it's hardly surprising that manufacturing moves away. My conclusion, my friends, is quite straightforward. This budget doesn't really do anything very good for us. It doesn't do anything very good for our future. And from a political point of view, it's a death warrant for the Labour Party's prospects of re-election. There's one circumstance in which I could be wrong. There could be a miracle. It could turn out that these flaccid and poorly thought out schemes, the lies that Rachel Reeves has told us about tax, and the bungling disincentives for us to invest and save our money don't count. It just could be that by some miraculous breach of everything I know about economics, the next 12 months will be a boom year for the United Kingdom. But I doubt that. When you look at Rachel Reeves's performance, it's of somebody who just doesn't really understand her brief. To so explicitly break your own promises made before a general election, and therefore reasonably assumed to be their manifesto commitment, to do that indicates a disrespect to the country and a disempowerment in the brief. In short, I think that Rachel Reeves is the worst chancellor we've ever had, certainly in living memory. I think that she doesn't understand what she's doing, and I think that we're the victims. Don't worry about Rachel. She'll have a good pension. She's earning a mint for her average performance. But do worry about the millions of people who will be affected by her decisions. If we make it to 2029, if the election really is in just under 4 years' time, I think our economy will be in ruins. It'll be staggering on, doing the best it can despite rather than because of Reeves's interventions. And it will be hit by body blows, because a lot of the things she committed to in the 2025 budget don't kick in till 2028, 2029. And if we are exposed to this crazy environmental agenda, one which doesn't make the world better, one that doesn't stop climate from changing, it's always changed and it always will, but one which does suck trillions of pounds over time out of our economy, then not only has Rachel Reeves presided over a set of lies and broken promises, she has also enshrined in our manufacturing and energy base a ridiculous, counter-scientific, cultist policy based on the false belief that human beings have caused a climate crisis. Put all that together, I think that Rachel Reeves's election performance is now sealed. I think what she has done is pretty much guarantee that Keir Starmer can never win a general election again. There's a prediction. Let's see what happens. I also think that if you did vote Labour in the past, you should write to your MP, if you've got a Labour MP, and say, why did you lie to us in the 2024 general election? See what they say. A few comments from your good selves. Carl says, unwinnable war. Yeah, I totally agree about Ukraine. They knew it was unwinnable from the start. Absolutely. this is what happens when Zionists take over. That's an interesting point. And we've talked about, I think, a tremendous performance by Israel in particular in lobbying the world. But that's a story for another time. And Colin asked, do you think that she's compromised then? But yes, I do. I think that the only reason that Rachel Reeves is still in office is that if she goes, then Keir Starmer probably has to go as well. He has committed himself to supporting this bungling Chancellor. And it would be a body blow to Keir Starmer's credibility if he has to replace her with somebody else. But from any professional moral point of view, that's exactly what he should do. But he won't, will he? Because it is, in my experience, the case that bad managers very rarely promote people who are better than they are. Keir Starmer is not a leader. He's a bad manager. And therefore, he's appointed the likes of David Lammy and Rachel Reeves as the people around him. No wonder this country's in a mess. Have your say. We're going to have a longer, and please do subscribe, by the way, to Unprecedented TV on YouTube. But have your say as well. The conversation will continue on X all day. And we're going to have a longer analysis of the budget with somebody who's got some expertise in this area. Other things to look out for. We've got a great show coming up with Tim Scott Uncancelled. And we've also got some very interesting news shows. One's called Heart and Soul, which takes a spiritual look at life in modern, particularly in the modern Western world. So lots coming up here. Thanks very much for watching. Do please subscribe, as I say. Go to Unprecedented YouTube channel. Won't cost you anything. Take you 20 seconds, but it helps us a lot if you do that. So there we are. That's my brief look, by popular request, as a former leader of a party, about the budget as it was this year. It was a budget of broken promises, bungled opportunities, and more than anything, I think, a 4-year suicide note for the Labour Party. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Lembit Öpik. This is Unprecedented TV. Have a good day, and probably a better one than Rachel.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The return of the sausages.